right, I'm sitting here today with my friend Rahkim Sabree, and he's a personal finance expert, lives in Connecticut right now, originally from New York, and just real happy to have him on the show. He's got some extremely exciting things that are going on in his life right now. Just everything he's touching turning to gold. So I'm gonna get myself out of the way and just welcome him onto the show. How you doing today?
Good, thank you. Thank you.
Awesome, man. Awesome. So, yeah, wanted to have you on here with Wealth Legion. I mean, so interesting the commonalities that we have, between my platform of dealing with personal finance and education, personal development, you know, personal growth, and then the work that you're doing, being an expert in personal finance. You want to come out and do courses for people, a lot of work as a speaker. It's a lot of overlap there. And you just want to
Yeah,
be shining stars in the industry just coming up and see the things you're doing out there. So I feel that everybody really needs to know your story. And so yeah, once again, honored to have you on here. So if I could just ask, how'd you get started? What led you on this path that you knew you wanted to be in education as well as finance?
so it's layered actually. It
Sure.
started off as more of a passion around getting myself set up right financially. Once I became kind of aware that there was more, more to life, more to experience, more to accomplish, and as I attained more, one of the things foundationally that was instilled in me is to give back, to share what it is that I learned. So each one teach one, and that whole concept. So I live and breathe that. And so really the demographic that I focus on when I do what I do is the demographic that I come out of, people who are either impacted by poverty from a class level, if you will, or economic, social class, if you will. But also, I fell into financial services, and so I've seen the spectrum, people who have negative money in their account and then people who have, several commas in their account. So I've been able to kind of look at the best practices of everybody really in that blend and pick from what I like and kind of leave what I don't like and avoid in my own management of my personal finances some of the mistakes and pitfalls that people have made based off of, trial and error. And realizing too that, financial literacy, which is, kind of the popular term right now, or financial education, is not just for people who are broke or who don't have money. There's people who make high income who still don't have the same knowledge of financial practices because either they feel confident enough with the money that they bring home, or they kind of defer managing their finances to somebody else. And so when I realized that, there is a huge market for financial education across the spectrum of people, regardless of how much money you take home at the end of the day, I say, well, let me hone in on this and focus and, trying to add value really to everybody that I encounter. Because money is one of those things that you talk about, or rather that you're told not to talk about. And I think that we need to have more conversations about it.
Amen. It's true. Well, let me ask you this. Is that a topic that came up a lot in your household as you were growing up?
Didn't come up at all.
Not at all.
And I don't think it's maybe for lack of desires. There's definitely some baseline conversation that's been had around, like, you should save your money. I've even heard the investing word growing up, but not really so much how, or so much on, accountability. So what are you doing? What are you doing with your money? Are you saving? And then what do you do with that saving? So that's kind of the next step. A lot of people get stuck on that concept of saving money, and then that's just kind of it. So yeah, not a lot of conversation around money or money management. No conversation at all around credit. And so that's really kind of where I cut my teeth when it comes to personal financial management, just understanding how credit works, and then eventually branching out into, different areas like investing or, obviously saving and budgeting, but also instructing other people on what best practices look like, debt management, even looking at, long-term planning. So
Yes.
one of the areas that I'm focused on now is, often neglected part of the financial plan is long-term planning in the area of healthcare. So how do you plan for that expense in the future? And it's not really a matter of if, but a matter of when. And so what do you have kind of established to tackle that?
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. And these are things that you kind of just came upon on your own, kind of like the saying, like if you don't come from a wealthy family should come from you, kind of like
Yeah,
that.
I hear that a lot, and it resonates with me quite a bit when I see that, circulating on social media, because I definitely believe that there's a charge for those who know to share what it is that they know. And it's just, that's been my life for the last, I want to say, for almost 10 years, really kind of incremental growth around my own acquisition of knowledge in the field, but then also, what do I do and how do I share that knowledge? How do I develop confidence in being able to stand in front of an audience, whether it be a literal audience or just somebody, in passing, and feel that I'm credible enough to speak to that topic. So, there's time that goes into that. There's experience that comes out of it. But now I'm at a place where I think I've experienced enough to say, hey, I can point to matter of fact based off of practical application instead of, well, this theory I had heard around what you should do. And that's where credibility is formed. So it's kind of a matter of maturing through that financial management.
I love that. And you definitely have mentored people along the way to where you're at right now. Can you talk a little bit about that? Some of the people that you work with and help?
Yeah, so I talk about finance freely, and I've been advised by some to monetize that, and there's a component to that I agree with, but there's a component to it that I feel like you can add value in that area, and then eventually people are going to continue to seek you out, and so it's not so much just kind of putting a price point at what these conversations look like, but more in the credit area than anywhere else. I've definitely guided people from kind of the low end of the spectrum, so 500s, into what is considered acceptable range, so mid sixes, sevens. I haven't gotten anybody quite into the eights yet, and I think that is more of a accountability issue on themselves than it is for me to kind of give them strategies. But that's definitely kind of where I got started. I try to stay away from giving people advice around investing just because I'm not licensed. So I don't want to tell you, you should invest in this stock or you should invest in this mutual fund, and they come back to me and I can get in trouble. But I like to talk about investing from the concept perspective and also make people aware that, a lot of times when you hear the word investing, you think the stock market automatically. And so make people aware that there's other ways to invest, right? And first and foremost, investing in yourself through education, but also, looking at real estate or looking at, some non-traditional ways to invest, like cryptocurrency, or there's this like huge focus right now on the Forex trading and the foreign currency, investing in businesses and investing in each other. So, then you get into group economics and that whole kind of thing. So making people understand that just kind of the concept of investing is, you put up capital so that you can get a return on that capital plus. And I've been a part of all those conversations.
I love it. And you mentioned something that I definitely wanted to talk about, group economics. And so I know that's very high up on your list of things that you're focusing on in the work that you're doing and in the message that you have. Tell us a little bit more about your approach with that.
So, with anything finance or financial management related, I find that the first barrier to get through is really the mindset. So how do I help people change their mentality around managing finances, or just money in general? And I think before you can get to a place where group economics can occur, people have to have a solid understanding of what money looks like on a personal level, but also have an openness and understanding too of this concept of circulating currency, right? So we use the word currency, and I like to say currency flows. You can't keep it static. And a lot of people, I think Black people in particular, definitely within my household, and I can hear it echoed throughout other households, there's this big focus, like I said, on saving. So save. And what are you saving for? What is the goal that you're saving towards? So I believe that the discipline around saving is not something that we're foreign to, but it's this idea that it's the scarcity mentality, right? So that goes into what I refer to and others refer to as a poverty mindset. You're looking toward this money because you feel like there's never going to be enough, and that's the complete opposite way of how money works. So we look at money or currency, it's current. It needs to keep moving. And so when we talk about group economics and the groups that do it well, they're circulating currency through their communities. So they're not looking necessarily to save, and saving is absolutely a good discipline, a necessary discipline to have. But they're looking to take my dollar and give it to some person in my community in exchange for a service or a product, so they can do the same thing repeatedly, so that this money stays within the same group. I think that the concept can be applied on a small level, so me and you. It can be applied on a larger level, so our family LLC, for instance, or even larger level. So you have whole communities, you have whole organizations, could be on a city level, state level, national level, international level. And so really just the compounding effect of being open to sharing, right, and getting rid of that scarcity mentality is what's going to make group economics successful.
This is good stuff, folks. I hope you're listening and taking notes. This isn't your everyday conversation that's coming up on the NBC. So, that's awesome stuff, man. So yeah, I also want to highlight your first book that you came out with, and ask you a couple of questions about that. So what's the name of your first book? The mentorship playbook.
Mentorship the playbook. So that came out last year, actually. This past August was the year anniversary of its publishing.
Congratulations. Yeah.
Thank you.
So tell me who would be your ideal reader? Who's your target audience for that one?
So I learned through this process that I have two audiences, and that's the buying audience and then the consuming of the content audience. And so for that one, the ideal audience would really be the age range of about 12 to 27, I want to say, young men. And I wrote from the perspective of a young man. And I use that specific age range because that is the age range that really the stories in the book span in my own life and development. So I know that very wide range, very transformative ages within that group, and really the concept that I drive in this particular brand of mentorship, if you will, is this concept of compassionate mentorship. So not just being there and going through the motions, but the mentor having an active interest in what the end result of their relationship with their mentee is, but also giving the mentee a voice or empowering them to know what they're looking for and to ask for it. So each chapter is followed by a call to action that speaks to both populations simultaneously. Whereas if you're the mentor, this is what you need to know, what you need to look out for. And if you're the mentee, then this is what you need to be asking for and working on. So it's kind of like a workbook, but I incorporate a lot of personal stories in there, just to kind of draw a picture of what lessons I've learned at those stages in my life. And then, just like I said, it's kind of like a playbook. So it gives you a baseline. And I've sparked quite a few conversations based off of kind of the flow that I've organized this work in, because people who have considered themselves long-term mentors are like, well, maybe I need to change my approach to mentoring. And then some of the younger audiences that I've addressed, so school-age young men, have realized that mentorship is a term that's kind of thrown around where, there's an impression that somebody who's considerably older than you and considerably more experienced than you is the only person that can be your mentor. Whereas I'm driving this concept of a mentor is anybody that you allow to have an influence on your thoughts, actions, and behaviors, right? So that can be your best friend, somebody who's the same age as you, who's just as inexperienced in life as you are. But so long as you're allowing them to influence the way that you behave, or the way that you think, or the way that you kind of move through your day, they're mentoring you. And there's positive and negatives to that. So it just kind of creates awareness too around who you allow to influence you, who you allow to be your friend, who you allow to stay in your circle. And I've had kids as young as 8, but spanning through high school, kind of give me good feedback around that. That they didn't realize that this is what mentorship was about, and just really good conversations.
That's huge. I wish more young men were out there doing that, really trying to give back. Because you're still in your 20s, right?
Yeah, the tail end. I turned 29 this year, so I'll be 30 next year.
Oh, man. Proud of the work you're doing. I mean, we need more young men like you out there that are really trying to make an impact. You said to kids as young as 8. So that's huge. It's absolutely huge. And not only that book, but you got another book coming out this year in the fourth quarter of 2019. Am I right?
That's right. So I took a pivot from mentorship, and mentorship is something that I'm passionate about, but people know me for the personal finance side, and so a lot of the feedback that I got around the book was, okay, when's the next one? And when are you going to talk to me about money? So I decided to focus on that. And this book is, I'm very excited about it. It's kind of pulling from all of the books that have influenced my views, not only on the mentality towards money, but also practical applications as it relates to, first of all, understanding these financial terms that we throw around, right? So the financial products that you see in a bank, what they're used for, how they're used, and also how to appropriately and effectively leverage those products. So you have, this idea of the checking account versus the savings account versus the different kinds of IRAs versus the 401k product versus credit cards and the various types of credit cards that exist. So there's a lot of mistakes and a lot of room for error when people are going to banks for this information, just because these organizations are for-profit organizations, right? So they're looking to sell a product. And, sometimes you might get good education and they're selling you a product, and sometimes you might be under an impression that's not necessarily accurate, right? You're talking about their rewards credit card and, why their rewards credit card is the best credit card for you to get. And it's not necessarily the best credit card for you to get, but they're looking to pass on the sale. And I work in financial services, so I'm not in any way just kind of like throwing a shade to the different kinds of banks out there. They have to make that money like anybody else. But I think, because finance is not a topic that's taught, a lot of people go into these institutions and they're ill-informed, and then they get taken advantage of, whether it's due to their being naive or just, bad sales practices. So I want to address all of those products on a baseline level, if at the very least kind of give a little bit of guidance in terms of what they're designed for and how to use them, but also talk about some of the experiences that have landed me where I am, in terms of my finances and my financial practices. So a lot of good stuff. I can't wait till it comes out. I don't want to give too much away about it, but I think it's definitely going to be powerful. What I will say is that this book is divided into two sections. And so the first section speaks to spiritual and mental relationship with personal finance, which I think is important. And then the second section talks about the physical, which is just kind of practical application. So mindset is key. I think it's the starting point, and it's not a starting point that you can skip. So that's why it's at the beginning of the book, and then the end of the book goes into, like I said, the practical application.
Awesome. And can that one, I mean, I know you've got your deal and what you're working on with that. Can you talk about the title to that one, or will they not let you?
I can tell you, I'm not going to say what the title is, but I can tell you that there's dual meaning in the title, and there's kind of this theme of duality throughout the book. So it definitely will challenge you to kind of look at the way that you, to reassess the way that you look at money, and also kind of give you a glimpse into the way that I look at money. And I'm willing to bet more times than not, what is considered status quo is not the way that I look at money.
Sure. So I just want to redirect people back to you so they can pick that one up. So definitely want to look for Rahkim Sabree, and you want to find his first book, which is the Mentorship Playbook, and that's available on Amazon, right?
Yep.
Exactly. And then they probably can go in there and follow you as an author, right? And then when your next book comes out, they'll be able to see that in your list.
Absolutely.
Perfect.
And I keep all of my stuff kind of consolidated into my website, so people can check that too. All my social media is there, the events that I do, pictures, summary of kind of what I'm about.
Okay.
So and my website is as simple as my name. It's rahkimsabree.com.
And how you spell it? Let's spell it out for them. I know somebody's taking some notes.
Yeah, it's www.rahkimsabree.com.
All right. Awesome. So that's how anyone can get all the news and all the things that are going on in your life.
Yep. All my social media, everything.
So should we hit him with the big one now? Man.
Let's go.
Yeah, everybody watching, just really excited to have him on here today. Recently, I just heard word that he is going to be a TEDx speaker on December 3rd in Hartford, Connecticut. So that is just huge news. How you feel about that? What happened when you heard the word that you were accepted for that?
I was excited, but I was not surprised. And I'm saying that from a place of gratitude, but also from a place of confidence. So just kind of give you a little bit of the backstory there. I started speaking publicly very recently, so as recent as last year. And I wanted to gain as much experience as possible in as short as amount of time as possible. So a mentor of mine who actually kind of modeled that speaking, the desire to speak after rather, told me that for the 2019 calendar year, I need to deliver 50 presentations. And that was my goal, and I was going, really strong towards the beginning of the year, and I kind of let that slip away just because of competing priorities, right? But at the end of 2018, I realized that TED was the platform that it was. And I said to myself, in planning for the year to come, that's something I want to do. And so, going back to that mindset piece, I wrote it down at the end of the year for January, for preparation for January, going through the year. I said, I want to be a TEDx speaker. And when I heard about the application process, I applied. I had to go through several interviews, and there was over 100 applicants, and they had to consolidate the list down to 8. And at no point was I worried about not being selected. I knew I had a solid topic. I've spoken before, so I know that I know how to talk. Um, it's just kind of that whole idea of manifestation, right? And that's a big part of money too. So just kind of understanding what you want and going after it, putting that energy out into the world, and taking steps towards making that happen. So I'm excited about it. It's definitely going to be powerful. Of course, the topic is going to be related to finance. My talk is called Financial Empowerment as a Team Sport, and goes back to that whole idea of group economics that we talked about earlier. So, understanding that there are other players that can make you successful in the same way that your teammates in a sport will. And I don't want to give away my whole talk, but that's kind of the gist of what I'm going to be talking about, drawing parallels between financial empowerment and what is a team sport.
Awesome. Well, once again, just want to thank you for coming on to my show before they have you on all the big shows on TV. Once you have
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
And the TED Talk. So, I mean, this year is going to have some really exciting things for you towards the end. So that's awesome.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, man. So the title of that talk is Financial Empowerment as a Team Sport. Right?
It is a team sport.
Is a team sport.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
So I will definitely be sharing that on all my social media platforms when it becomes available. So
appreciate that.
How does that work? Like on their official YouTube account, when you do your speech, they'll just put it up once they finish editing and all that?
I believe there's going to be a live stream, and I'm sure that they're going to do some final editing as well. So yeah, they'll have an official YouTube account that they'll share the link from, and I believe on their website. And once I get that, then I'll put that out there.
Awesome, man. So I won't press for your whole playbook for 2020 and beyond. So, I mean, with the things you've got lined up to the end of the year, that's awesome. I will ask, what's your biggest goal, I guess, that you're looking to accomplish just with the body of work that you're building right now?
That's a good question. And it's not something that I've narrowed down to one item specific. I definitely know that the intent behind all of this is to reach as many people as possible, and to inspire as many people as possible to not only achieve a level of financial education that kind of positions them well, right, but to at the root of all of it, believe in themselves and their ability to do whatever it is that they want to do. So I use this term frequently, and I challenge people to have the audacity to believe in the impossibility of impossibility, right? And that's just kind of a very flowery way of saying that nothing is impossible. And I believe that wholeheartedly. Anything that you can conceive, you can achieve, something that has been instilled in me since I was a very young child. And it's something that I carry into all of my endeavors. It's not a matter of can I do it, but how can I do it?
Right. That's huge. Thank you for sharing that. So I hope we get 1,000 views on this one this week. Definitely gonna get it out there. This has been a good conversation so far. I'm gonna switch gears here. Really appreciate you supporting our book project that really just launched the beginning of August. So thank you for picking up a copy.
Absolutely.
I'm assuming that you got through the content. It's a short read. Actually heard an interesting approach on the book. I've got a friend, Kahende, and his approach to reading this book, he takes one question a day. And so he's going to actually do it over the period of 100 days so that he can really contemplate each one. So that's kind of approach that I wouldn't have even thought of. So thought that was kind of cool. A lot of people are sitting down and just knocking it out and then just going back over it over and over and then incorporating it into their conversations with their friends and family, things like that. So the stories that have been coming back have just been awesome. And we've been hosting our own conversations around the content in there. And so, yeah, I'll throw a couple questions for you from out of the book we can discuss. I found ones that I thought were most relevant to your personal story and everything I know about you. I think we've got this background going now. So
Yeah.
this one kind of touches on some things you've already mentioned on the show today. And it's question 10 from the book. And the question is, what hinders the creation of economically successful Black communities?
Right. So yeah, we definitely touched on a few things. That scarcity mindset, that kind of feeds into poverty mindset, and I don't want to throw these terms out at people who don't understand them. So just kind of this idea that there's not enough, or just kind of the behaviors that we have around managing our money. So there's this constant competition within our communities. For one to outdo the other. And it's not unique to us, but since we're talking about us, with, I don't want to blame hip hop culture, but, what you see out on the media, especially social media now, everybody's trying to outdo each other. Everybody's trying to keep up with the Joneses. And there's so many ways now, specifically financially, to control I don't want to call it an asset, but to control a product without necessarily owning it, that ends up costing you much more in the long run, whether it be, for rent, for lease, for borrow, or for sale, right? And so you're spending a lot of money on something that is not going to continue to produce income for you, so it's a liability. And after you spend the money on it, the money is gone when you have that item. But, then comes the next wave of what's popular. So I think we need to get out of that mindset as a whole. And I think that a lot of that comes from this. There's a book that I own. My grandfather put me on. It's called Post-Traumatic Slave Syndrome. And that's a real thing, right? So we have this mentality coming out of our history in this country that dictates how we behave, and that mentality is passed on generationally, I believe, and unless we take drastic actions to address those, and then to I don't want to say cure, but to heal from those traumas. In the same way that anybody with PTSD from, any kind of past would have to, that we're going to continue to make the same mistakes or use the same coping mechanisms. And ours is a very resilient people. We find ways to kind of make do with what we have or what we don't have.
Right.
And so I think those factors contribute to it. There's this idea too of that, one person's success means that you can't be successful, right? So I'll share with you guys in kind of the vein of vulnerability, right? I knew that I wanted to write a book, but I was adamant about not writing a book on financial literacy because financial literacy is a hot topic right now. And I did not want to oversaturate the market with content that everybody else is putting out. And so I was talked into sticking to my guns and sticking to what I know and reevaluating what it is that my approach would be to writing this book, because I'm not speaking to it from a position of, well, this is what is in vogue right now, but I'm speaking to it from a position of, this is what I live every day. I walk the walk, and I have the knowledge to back it up. So whether what I put out there is within the same kind of topic or subject field as what the next person puts out there, there's still so many people that can consume that content. And so that's how I was convinced to change my mind. But there's a lot of, I see young Black people putting out content related to financial education, which is great. And I think that there needs to be more of it. I don't think that there could be enough of it. with that content catered specifically to our demographic too, because there's years and years and years of conditioning and behaviors that need to be undone. So if I could say the same thing over and over and over again, and have my consistency break your inconsistency, then that's a win for me.
I love it.
But I think, those definitely are kind of like the baseline of why we can't even get in the same room together, because, I'm competing against you instead of looking for ways to collaborate and be great together.
And that's exactly what we're doing. So just leading by example, showing people what's possible. And
that's right.
Be a lot more of this going on. So we'll go with the next one. Question 45, I figure would be an interesting one. I know you're in the financial services industry as well as, an entrepreneur with a lot of big things going on. But while you're still in the financial services industry, I would ask you, do you feel respected by your boss and that your work is valued by your company?
So that's a tough question to answer, right? Because of my boss sees this, right?
If they see it, you want to scratch it?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
No. I want to keep it because I think it's important. And let me preface my answer by saying that regardless of what value anybody assigns to the work that I do or how I contribute to the organization that I work for, whatever that may be at that particular point in time, I know, and differently from a lot of people, and maybe similar to more people in my particular demographic, so, millennial, Black, male, I know what value I bring to the organization.
Right.
So I have great confidence in the way that I move through a corporate environment, that not only am I performing, but I'm performing well. I make it very clear that it's my intention to perform at the higher levels of performance, constantly look for feedback, constantly implement that feedback. And so I think the struggle there for me is how do you balance being high performing and maintaining your authentic self in that environment. Mm-hmm. So, that goes into a whole other topic, right? The whole idea of code switching, that whole idea of, your second self and those factors. But to answer your question specifically, I do think that I am respected. I demand it. I command it. So, I'm not going to be disrespected. And in terms of the work that I do and whether or not it's valued, absolutely, because I strive for high quality work. One approach that I take to the work that I do is making sure that I understand that this is not the Rahkim show. So as long as I'm working for somebody else, then it's what they say goes. And even if I feel like my way is a better way and I can't get the buy-in that I'm looking for to execute on things my way, I have to understand, this is their show. So I typically lead by asking them what they're looking for and then providing them, with what they ask for. And if I do take a consulting approach to the work that I do, whether it be from a leadership perspective or influencing perspective, then I'll say, okay, this is my opinion. This is based off of my expertise, what is that I'm recommending. If you are good with that, then let's move forward. If you don't agree with that and you want me to do something else, I'm perfectly capable of doing that. But just know I threw this out there. And so I think that allows for me to maintain some level of sanity when it comes to navigating that space. Just because I know that I did the right thing by bringing it up and challenging the process. But I also know that, until it's the Rahkim show all the way around, I'm going to have to yield to the authorities that be.
Sure. No, that's some great insight of how to navigate within the corporate environment. Other questions in the book speak to that as well. We won't talk about them on the show today, but it definitely can be a tricky place for a lot of people. And you're excelling there, so I think that's wonderful. I think in a couple of years they're going to look back and wish they still had you, because you are going to have moved on to greater things. So I'm rooting for you.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, definitely. We'll go with the last one. It's question 13, and it's, who is your trusted source for financial advice and education? So
So
that's a
I
good one
like this
to wrap
question.
up.
I like this question a lot because I don't like putting the word trust and finance in the same sentence very often. And I actually had a personal situation occur where somebody asked me if I trusted them relating to, the management of my personal finances. I said, I need you to get that out of your head because this is not about trust. It was specific to credit, right? And so just kind of a sidebar to anybody that's listening, you don't ever co-sign for somebody else, right? And I think that's kind of what the situation was. They were looking for me to use my credit to their benefit. And so it came down to this question of trust. And I said, no, if I'm using my credit, like this is a business transaction, and I need to have really strong measures in place, right, to kind of manage that risk because I've worked hard to get to where I'm at from a credit perspective. But my answer is that I don't have a trusted source of financial advice. I don't think that finance, specifically personal finance, has a cookie cutter approach or a one size fits all for everybody. Everybody's situation is unique. And you kind of have to know a little bit more background before you give some advice, because what might work for you or what might work for me rather may not work for you and vice versa. So I like to take baseline scenarios that I've either witnessed or hear people talk to, and then make decisions based off of, first of all, where I'm at in life, right? I can take tremendously greater risk at this stage in my life than I'll probably be able to in, 5 to 10 years. But I mean, I could give an example, right? So I like to pull from some of what, Dave Ramsey talks about, but I don't agree with everything that Dave Ramsey talks about.
Sure.
I like to pull from some of what Grant Cardone talks about, but I don't agree with everything that Grant Cardone talks about. I love Robert Kiyosaki and the work that he's created through Rich Dad and the Rich Dad Poor Dad book, but I don't agree with everything that Robert Kiyosaki talks about. But because I'm able to look at all of these different gurus, if you will, in the world of finance and investing and those kind of things, and see what their strategies are and what makes sense for me at a certain point in my life, then I can say, well, you know what? I have debt, so I'm going to leverage Dave Ramsey's snowball debt removal method. But I don't believe in this concept of, paying off my house in 15 years in a 15-year mortgage, when I can leverage time and the tenants paying my rent over that period of time in line with something that maybe Robert Kiyosaki would recommend. Or, Grant Cardone loves to talk about leverage. And, leverage is this idea of using very little of your own and a lot more of somebody else's. And that all kind of plays into this idea of good debt versus bad debt. I love that concept. I love the idea of leverage. And, I'll give the audience and viewers kind of a sneak peek. One of the stories that I'm going to talk about, and I talk about it all the time, in the book, is how I bought my first house, right? So I bought my house almost for free, right? Because I qualified for the mortgage, obviously, and I had to pay for the inspection and the earnest money to make sure that I secured the property. But when I had to come to the closing table, I took 0% for 12 months cash advance on one of my credit cards, and I paid the closing with the credit card. So I shouldn't say for free. It was definitely deferred because that money does get paid back. But without actual money in hand, the money that I saved, I used for other things like purchasing furniture and the like. But that's just kind of a very, I think, basic concept of using leverage, because now I'm paying 3.5% down for FHA loan on a income producing multifamily property using a credit card that's not necessarily my money, so that I can use my money that I save for something else. And those are just kind of a combination of different strategies that that you just kind of acquire through experience and reading and education and that whole kind of thing. But yeah, I don't have a trusted source for financial advice. I just kind of like to pull from what's out there. And so that education piece, like I said, is key. And I'm constantly trying to learn about, how people use money, how people use credit, how people invest, what they invest in, how to make my dollar go further. And then I just put it into application.
Awesome. That's huge. Good answer. So I got one more for you. So
Sure.
outside of the mentorship playbook, your book, what books would you recommend for people that are curious toward going down this path of self education in personal finance? Are there any books that have really impacted you? Maybe your top 3, top 5.
Absolutely, yeah. Definitely Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I like to kind of keep it at the top of the list. And that's just because that was the first one that I got my hands on. And that book changed my life, I'll tell anybody. Just kind of the way that it reframed this idea of being a consumer and an employee. So Robert Kiyosaki talks about this cash flow quadrant with the employee and business owner who works for their job versus the other side of the quadrant where you are a business owner who owns a system that produces income. So you're not working for your business, but your business is paying you. And the investor who is just investing and making money off of their investments. And that really kind of changed just everything. That got the ball rolling. But outside of Rich Dad, Poor Dad, definitely The Richest Man in Babylon. So it talks about this idea of paying yourself first, or taking 10% of what you make as your own and keeping that, and then the idea of multiplying what it is that you take and take for yourself and making it grow. So love that book. The Millionaire Next Door, I love. That's another big one. Think and Grow Rich. So that more speaks to some of the concepts that we talked about around manifestation, what your mindset says to you. And then there's a book, it's not specific to finance, but it kind of talks about a concept that's tossed around in finance. It's called the compound effect. And so it talks about this idea that small, consistent actions create much larger long-term results. So it's just, the analogy that I think a lot of people use is the example of the tortoise versus the hare. And so you're not trying to, at the last minute, throw, thousands of dollars into your retirement account because that's where you are in life. But over time, starting early, like 18, 19, 20, 21, putting away something, $25, $50, $100 every time you get paid. And that over time, the idea of compounding, whether it be the interest or dividends, is going to yield you a much greater, larger overall end balance or whatever. So I really like that idea because you can kind of apply this idea of compounding to every area of your life, which is, small steps toward whatever your goal is on a consistent basis are going to have lasting effects over, this sprint that you kind of get winded and tired from, whether it's dieting, working out, saving money. If you do one small thing every day, it's going to have an effect. Those are the few that come to mind. I can't think of anything else right now, but I know that there's a ton out there. And there's a ton more that I've read. But those really, I think, anybody looking to get started are the books that I would recommend.
Awesome. That's huge. I mean, that would keep anybody busy for
Yeah,
6
for a
months.
little while.
I mean, they're readers, and then it's everybody else, right? So, that list of books would keep some people busy for quite a while. And it takes a lot to really sink in and truly incorporate those things into your life. And when those books are at the top of your list of favorites, I know those are books that you read over and over time too. So
Oh yeah.
yeah,
Oh
no,
yeah.
that's a great list though. But yeah, I mean, you come on today and just really given a lot of value to all the viewers. So I thank you for that. And we'll have to get you back on here once you've done your TEDx talk, and hopefully before you get on the Ellen Show and Steve Harvey and all. So thanks, man.
Yeah, well, I'll come back even after that too.
I appreciate it. I don't have their kind of budget yet, but I'm working on
Yeah.
it. So, I'm praying for my quality production crew to show up. So
Yeah.
right. But no, thank you so much. Hope everybody got something huge out of this today. I know you can now see why I wanted to have Rahkim on the show. He just has so much knowledge. He's so young. I could listen to him talk all day, but for the sake of time, we're going to let you go, and we'll have him back on the show, maybe in 5 months from now.
Yeah, definitely.
Awesome, man. Well, really appreciate your time today.
Yeah, no, thank you for having me.
My pleasure. Take care.